Good evening. Chitra had called me up and said, Dipali, please talk about how to build a future-proof marketing strategy. And I thought about it and I said to myself, वो तो होता नहीं है, marketing and then you do strategy, especially in this era that we're living in, can't be future-proof. Anything that you decide today, you have to review tomorrow and, change day after. So how do you actually end up doing strategy that is future-proof? But here are 4 or 5 things that I have been very passionate about, and I think by the grace of God, as I say, 90% perspiration and 10% inspiration, so 10% stroke of luck, which is why I say by God's grace, I've been successful at delivering, the business numbers, whether it's sales or, whether all the measures that you measure in marketing. So I said, let me just share with you some of those things. Okay. Build a brand identity which is future-proof. I think if you look at some of the brands, and I worked with one of them, which was L&T, and what I mean here by brand identity is I'm talking about sheer logos and the way your brand looks, and that's what I mean by brand identity, which is not just the logos, but all the other elements that you use. And I worked with a brand called L&T. I don't know if how many of you remember the way L&T is written. There is an ampersand between L&T. What do you think is the URL of this company? What do you think is the URL? Can you have an ampersand in the URL? All of you technology guys sitting here, digital guys sitting here. Can you have ampersand in the URL? So this company, when they did the brand identity, of course, many years ago, I don't think internet existed. I don't think digital existed. It's a sheer coincidence, but it's impossible for them to actually get their right brand name online anywhere. Be it social media handles, be it URL. And we had a huge discussion and debate internally whether we should everywhere write LN, the alphabet, T, and therefore you have L&T Insurance, which I was a part of, or L&T Infra, or L&T Financial Services. I managed their IPO also. Or you should just write LT. And there was a huge debate between the financial services organization and the corporate organization, because this is subjective and it's a decision which somebody is going to take, which is completely human. And my point therefore is that if you're building brands today, and I thankfully have been, even at IIFL Wealth, I'm trying to build a brand, and I will show you some of the work that I'm doing over there. Then build a brand, which is future-proof. So that's one part of building a future-proof marketing strategy. Let me just show you, for example. It says 98, 99, 2000. I just want to show you the Google logo. I guess they changed slightly, but by and large, Google logo has not changed. I didn't even know that these changes existed, but when I researched, I found this. This is a relatively new brand. They were from the internet era. Their name and the way they do their identity, the Google homepage changes colors, celebrates festive occasions, so on and so forth, And that's the other part of building an identity. Okay, this is 3M. I don't know, does anybody know how many years 3M has been in existence? Any idea? Okay, I don't know, you can Google it, but the only thing that I've heard about them is that from an innovation perspective, they're absolutely considered. And the board, they start chewing you up when you change the logo, because for another 3 months, the new logo is not going to get shown on Google. Okay, Google Images takes about, once the crawlers fit in, I think 2 crawls, and that's when your new logo starts coming in, and you can never delete the old one. So you will have people still using the old logo, so that's a challenge that you face today. Pepsi, lots and lots of changes, very, very old company, but they are a FMCG company. They have very little to do online. They can afford to do whatever. The logo only gets seen at the end of the TVCs that you see on, YouTube and Facebook ads or videos. Shell, another very large infrastructure company, closest perhaps to the L&T example that I gave, but fairly consistent for the last 70, 80 odd years, from 1948 in terms of what they've done. This kind of things are called refresh in your logo identity, and what they've done from 48 onwards to now, that kind of refresh is actually, perfectly acceptable. This is the logo I inherited when I joined in October last year. I should not be saying this all in front of Gagan because Gagan's actually competition now. Very dear friend, but competition now. Okay. And interestingly, we have about 4 businesses that I look after in terms of marketing and branding and digital, but these 2 are our key businesses. Wealth is a business where we are the largest in the country today, despite being at the top end, but we're already the largest in about 8 years' time. Asset management business was a tied-in business to wealth. It did not have a separate identity. I joined in October, and in December, from a business strategy perspective, we took a decision that asset management was going to become open architecture. What that meant was that whatever products, financial products, that got designed at asset management, in financial parlance that's called manufactured, would get sold by any wealth management company who's actually competing with the wealth part of our business. They're actually our competitors. And these 2 businesses are actually joined together at the hip. Now, to make it successful this time, we needed to do a logo change because wherever my asset management guys, when they were wanting to go and sell through Axis Bank, ICICI Bank, Julius Baer, whatever, they weren't able to, convince them that we are 2 separate companies and they needed to do that. So that was necessitated the logo change, the reason for the change. But this time around, I think trying to do just one logo, when I looked at it and I said, if I were to really look, and by the way, we've changed logo every 2 years or so, the descriptors have changed. The main Sri Yantra and the IFL has remained the same, but at the bottom, the descriptions have been changing. They started out by being private wealth management, then they became wealth management, then wealth and asset management came in. So, to give them credit, they're very marketing conscious, but this is the first time that they've hired a CMO. I said, okay, if that's the culture of the company, that they spawn off new businesses, let's build an identity which satisfies that, which allows them to change if they want to change every 1 year, okay, and yet remain the same, okay? So this is what we did. So we've got almost like a holdco and a sub-brand structure. So you've got investment managers on the left. That becomes the definition for all the global businesses. This is not the legal entity, by the way. This is just the brand name that we've structured. And then I've got 5 businesses around that. The bottom 3 businesses are perhaps the ones that you will not see in your face and may not get seen too much because they're currently not big enough. But the top 2 businesses are the ones which required separate identities. So one found a solution which allows them the culture and the DNA that they have, which is they want to change the names every now and then. So interestingly, by the way, you see the 4th one, which is Credit Solutions. When I started work on this was supposed to be Lending Solutions. After we finished the logos and everything, just at the launch time, it became Credit Solutions. So that's the other thing in terms of future-proofing. There is the classical literature that you read in Kotler or you read in brand identity books, which is about be clear about the business strategy, get the vision out, then design the logo, before that brief the agency. But the reality is that there is a culture in the DNA of the organization, and the organizations are typically run on growth, revenue growth, profit building, and if you're listed, then valuation in the stock market, and those motivations will always, business will always take over first, and unless you're in an FMCG company, and the brand part of the identity, comes later. It's been 12 years since I stopped working for FMCG brands, so I'm, more privy to this kind of a reality. So here's just, one learning. Versus this, I'm going to show you something exciting after this. I don't know if you've ever seen this. This is something that we've launched 7 days back. Any idea? You want to take a guess what category this is? What is it a brand of or a logo of? I like some people Googling it. Very good. Please do it. No. But thankfully, yeah, it's not financial services. It's a poker league team. Okay? So just now in Goa, there's a poker sports league that's been established in India. First ever tournament of the poker league is happening. I worked on this logo, got a design. I'm no designer, I can't even draw. So when I say I got this logo done, it means I got it done through somebody. And I take pride in being part of giving a good, tight brief and then in judging that this design, will work. So we had to first give the nomenclature. We knew we were getting the Hyderabad team. We had the choice of giving a name, Kings or something or whatever, like you much have the cricket, league teams. So we decided on the name, and after that we briefed the, agency to get the logo out. All done in a space of 4 days. That also happens, in our lives. And I think what helped me was that I think for the last 7-8 years, because I've been working on this new brand, new logos, new launches, when somebody says, premium to me, at least in my mind, it is about purple and gold or black and gold. So, when I briefed the agency and I said, let's do black and gold. Okay, so that helps you because it keeps the identity simple. The black and gold also gives you a variation that you want to do on the internet after that, therefore. And this brand is going to go in a lot of merchandise and places like those. This is the kind of work, just 7 days launch, 7 days back, the whole effort started. We've done, the brand is largely seen on posts. There are of course t-shirts, and you have a set of poker cards, I think, with you, which I'm giving away as goodies. So can I just, I just gave away the 5 goodies to you guys, if you can give it back to me. Okay, so they're going to look for it. Okay. These are the other logos. They also got only 3-4 days. And we've been told anecdotally that our logo is the best. Yeah? I don't get paid for this, by the way. This is labor of love. I get the opportunity to showcase work like this on a stage like this. So that's the beauty. So I don't know how many of you can see it, but at the back, if you ask me interesting questions or if you make interesting comments, then one of this is yours. Okay? It's been manufactured by a company which is the world's largest card manufacturing company. Okay? They're one of our sponsors. Okay. Plug, please follow us. King Hyde team on Twitter. Please like us on Facebook and on Instagram, right? At least let me get that benefit of being here. Build an identity which is digital first. I think I already mentioned the L&T example to you. My only other suggestion to you is that if new logos or new descriptors are being shown to us, especially by the traditional design agencies who've been in existence for 20 years, 30 years, who actually know the craft, who actually know how to interpret, briefs into design, and these are not your advertising agencies. These guys tend to show you logos which look spectacular when they present to you on boards, on A4 sheets in printed format. Even before you start falling in love with any one of the design that they present, please tell them to show it to you how it will look on your mobile phone. In the small size, okay? Will it be readable? Will the colors work? Will it work on 10 different backgrounds? Okay? If you're in financial services, tell them, fix it on the moneycontrol.com sponsorship page. That little, that little half centimeter by, 2 centimeter space that you get, and that's all that the consumer is going to see saying, is my name going to be visible? Before you start falling in love, with the logo that they presented, and you think that you can judge design very well before that. Okay, so just one more tip that I wanted to share. So building an identity. I think the second very important thing, according to me, is build a team which is future-proof. And I want to talk about 2 things to you. One is organizational structure, and second is culture of the team. I don't think I could have delivered the kind of things that I have delivered if I didn't have absolutely brilliant team, working with me. I'm probably as bad as the baddest link in my team. Okay, so it's not about being as good as the best person in my team. It's about a CMO is always as bad as the weakest link in his team. So therefore, let your weak move up. Do not have weak people in your team. At least have, averages and, the best people working for you, so that, you stand at least 8 on 10, 9 on 10 as far as your team is concerned, if not, 10 on 10. I think the other thing, thanks to my experience with an AMC first, then an insurance company, which was a startup, then going to a holiday company, and again being at IIFL Wealth, which I consider like a startup, is that you need to see what is the DNA of the organization. You also need to be conscious of the category that you're in, and therefore what kind of people you require, and then build the org structure. Don't build it for people, build it for the roles that will grow in that organization. Okay? So in Mahindra Holidays, for example, this is a very, very simplistic example that I'm giving you. We used to have huge social media listening requirement. Okay, we had an agency which had 4 dedicated people looking after our listening requirement, right? I had one person with 3 years of experience from a very good MBA institute looking after just the listening portfolio. That's not required in financial services. Okay, in financial services, that is 20% of somebody's job, or even 10%. Okay, if you're a bank, maybe different again, sorry. In a bank, it could be a huge job. If you're a hugely retail audience or youth-oriented financial service, which doesn't as yet exist in this country, then it may be different. But think through that. Think through the roles. Think through whether they're going to grow or not. Don't just hire. Because you need to hire people for success, for them to be good at the work that they do. Right? If you can't, the best experiment that I do is either I ask my agencies to give me implant, and the second form, I give opportunity to a lot of women who are sitting at home. In the last 6 years, thanks to the CEOs getting convinced by me and thanks to my CHROs getting convinced by me, I couldn't have done it without them, there are at least 14 women whom I have given a career option when they were sitting at home for either 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, for whatever reasons, but typically because of, taking care of the little babies at home. All they require is flexibility in terms of timing and nothing else. And if you can find the right skilled person, 2 things happen for you. One is they're typically not part of the appraisal process because you've hired them as consultants. All the work done by them, your team gets the credit during the appraisal time. Okay? Second, I have not seen a more committed set of people because you made that opportunity possible for them when they weren't getting it anywhere. So they think of your work even when at home. They're very productive. Yeah? Just wanted to share something else with you. Second thing on team building is what is the culture? And there's just one thing that I want to tell you about, which is building a culture of failure for future-proofing success. Anybody who wants to comment on this? I'm actually saying build a culture of failure. What does that mean to any one of you? Yeah. Okay. I don't know if you heard him, but he's talking about the fact that some organizations don't hire people if they've not seen failures. Yes. If some of you have heard my first post interview, that's what I said there. Fail fast, fail small. Okay, it's important to not fail big, right? A simple formula, if any one of you probably heard me talk about it before, I call it the 5% formula. When I joined Mahindra Holidays, they had shared with me, the sales were not working through digital and it was a little bit of a chaos and mess and that I'm going to be walking into it. And the only negotiation I did with them is that I have a budget of 100 crores for the 5% of the budget, which is 5 crores. And if you gave me 90 crores, then 4.5 crores. You will not ask me questions about this got wasted or the work that we did with it, it didn't work. Only 5%. Okay? What that allowed me to do is, every quarter I told my team, go do an experiment, whatever you feel like, as long as you measure it. That's the only criteria I have, that you measure it well. Don't come back to me and say, we didn't measure it, so we don't know what happened. And whatever works, we will scale it up in the next few quarters. Whatever doesn't work, nobody will know about it ever. Doesn't go into your KPIs, doesn't go into your appraisal, doesn't go into your record sheet anywhere. Right? A closed door secret between the marketing team. And that, I think, has worked wonders, especially in building the team culture, because they're very comfortable then. It builds in the culture of measurement, first of all, which is extremely important for marketing, especially in these days. Build a network which is future-proof. Any comments? What do you think I mean here? Sorry? Yeah, absolutely. It also means be friends with your marketing partners and don't be a client. Okay? A lot of the CEOs of the digital agencies and advertising agencies are really on a fast dial with me. And the one thing that they crib about, how many of you are from the client side? Let me see the hands. So the rest are all from the marketing partners, digital agencies. How many of you from digital marketing, advertising agencies or media sales? Okay, who are the rest? I again have a question for the organizers. Who are the rest of the people? Okay. The one complaint that I hear, especially from the CEOs of the ad agencies, is that the CMOs are actually quite humble and soft and give you good briefs, but the junior people are the rudest ever. And you must educate your team about it. Because it is important for you to build these networks. It's important for them to build these networks. Second is inculcate a set of people who know stuff better than you. Okay? They should be on your fast dialing network to call up and say, hey, listen, I have this thing, what do you think? You may not be my agency, it doesn't matter. But, I know that so-and-so is a great expert. Again, I'm going to refer to Gagan because he's a familiar face here. And I recently went up to Gagan to do exactly that. I said, Gagan, I need to understand this better. Can I come to you? I need 1 hour for education. So do you have these set of people whom you know who are stated experts in a space that they are an expert at? Build those networks. Yeah? Future-proof yourself. There's no point if you build a future-proof marketing strategy but you don't future-proof yourself, you'll soon be a CMO without a job. What does this mean to all of you? Skills like what? Sorry? Keep learning, okay. Have a set vision for who? The brand, yourself? Sorry? For yourself and the brand. Sorry. What kind of skills? Sorry? Okay. Some people at the back. Yes. Yes. And the lady at the back in the maroon dupatta also raised her hand, I think. Yes, I think all of you what you've said is right, absolutely. Okay, be open to change, learn new things, acquire new skills, etc., etc. Just want to ask you a question. How many of you go into a classroom every year for learning something? How do you learn these skills? You just get them. How many of you in the last 1 year have gone into a classroom, sat down and learned something new? Brilliant. I don't get that lot of hands normally, but it's brilliant if you've done that, and I found that I think that's very important. It sometimes may be pertaining to your work, and sometimes it may be stuff which is not pertaining to your work. And I think that's also great. For me at least, it's a humbling experience because I have gone and joined classes for stuff which I'm not good at, and it's a great humbling experience because everybody else is better at it, and it just makes you humble. So that's great. I think this is probably my second last slide. All the world's a stage and all the men and women merely players. They have their exits and their entrances, and one man in his time plays many parts. I'm an English literature and a math student, so I love quoting Shakespeare. I think he was not just a brilliant author, but I think he was probably who understands relationships and minds and consumer the best. If you look at some of the character sketches of, the characters that he has in his various plays, I think they probably stand the test of time even today. But I think why am I bringing up this quote here? Going back to what I mentioned to you about the organizational structures, you must also understand that marketing plays a different role in every organization. In a bank, it is different. In a AMC, it is different. In a holiday company, it is different. In FMCG, it is different. And you must appreciate it. And then choose and suit what your team should be doing, what do you excel at, and build the, organization for it. It also changes over a period of time. There was never so much pressure on marketing to deliver ROI, show returns, have sales KPIs, on your numbers. There was, in fact, I still remember, and I've been teaching at MBA schools for a while now. I clearly remember a decade ago, most people who used to choose marketing were not numbers conscious at all. And they all used to feel that you don't need to be numbers conscious. And that's a case that's changed dramatically today. If you want to be in marketing, you need to be, understanding numbers really, really well. Otherwise, you're just fit for the communications department, which is becoming a 10% or a 20% job in a CMO's organization of what marketing, does. So I think with that, I'll be very happy to answer any one of your questions. That's my Twitter ID. Feel free to follow and feel free to post, and we can continue the conversation there. But I'd love to hear if you have any questions. Yes.
Thank you, Dipali. This was a great session. I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Thank you.
I have a fundamental question. When you say future-proof, and especially on the slide when you spoke about careers and skills, right, that you should be able to actually show a growth path for the team that you're building. What is the timeline that you're looking at? I was very curious because
very good question.
Change is 3 years, 5 years. It's so massive that we have to reinvent ourselves and our strategy almost probably every year.
Very good question. The first part that I'm going to tell you is something I've heard somebody else say, and the second part I've thought of it just now because of your question. I once attended an HR conference, and there's a gentleman who is probably the COO at a company called Hewitt, which is known for its HR processes. He's also written a book. I'm sorry, I forget the book's name and his name, but he said something very interesting. He says people who are passing out of colleges now are prepared for a certain skill set, okay? And he thinks that in the years to come, these people will need to retool themselves 3 times, okay, before they retire. So the first tooling is the first college degree that you do, and then he thinks every 10, 12 years, you probably need to go back to a classroom fully, because whatever you were doing earlier, whatever you were an expert at, will become outdated, okay? Now, if I take that 10, 12 years, as a principle, then this is what I've thought of just now. I think you need to be doing new things yourself. At least 25% of the things that you're doing or skill sets that you're using every 3, 4 years needs to change. That's when the 25% adds up to 10 to 12. That's when maybe you will not need to invest a lot of money into going back to college, but that means, learning new things, which means that you put up your hand inside your current organization and say, I'm willing to do something different. Which is, how somebody said, step out of your comfort zone, but you have to consciously do it, is my personal belief. Thanks for that lovely question. Can we please hand over a pack of poker cards to her, please? Thank you. Yes. Yes, at the back. I can hear you, I'll repeat your question. Yes. Yeah. And I think there was an airline whose stuff was doing the rounds on WhatsApp recently. I'll share with you my insight, okay? And I could be wrong, right? With a huge disclaimer, right? Perhaps similar to the airlines, right? Where a lot of Hinglish and slang is used, right? A very typical example of this is, the food was wicked, which actually means a positive thing, but all the so-called bot and AI or, systemic analysis, non-human analysis of this is going to be negative because wicked is a negative word in its normal context, and those systems cannot get pun, okay? I don't know what the future will look like when more sophisticated AI comes in, but till now I've found this limitation in the tool. And whenever somebody's come and presented tools to me, in financial services, you don't run into trouble, and I think you're okay using the tools that are available. But if you are dealing in hospitality, fashion, airlines, and these businesses, then I think you need to be careful. What did I do, therefore? We used to have about, I think, 90,000 to a lakh mentions every month at Mahindra Holidays when I was there. It used to be around 50, 60,000 in the 2.5 years that I worked. It grew up to 1 lakh. We had human intervention. We did not have a tool. We had a tool for measurement. We had a tool for responding. We had a tool for doing everything that. But as far as the segregation of, we used to have just 3 segregations, very simple: positive, negative, and neutral. Okay? And that segregation was human. Okay? That's, I mean, my humble submission and recommendation. Thank you.
Hi.
Yes. Hi.
I'm Raj. I'm from a digital insights agency.
Yes.
That's also listed on the stock exchange. So we have IFL people we meet every once and often. It's a very interesting topic theme. In fact, the motto or positioning line of our company is also future-proof the enterprise.
Future-proof?
So, the enterprise.
Okay.
So that's our tagline.
Okay.
Apart from India's first and only listed company,
Okay.
we also write future-proof the enterprise.
Right.
I think a lot of things you covered, some of them were tactical, but I think later on it got strategic when you talked about culture and team building. So we've often heard, culture eats strategy for breakfast. And in the environment of, when you look at future-proofing an enterprise, do you think these two can be separated, or can the strategy be so strong that strategy can eat culture for breakfast, or we have to stop seeing them as separate, distinct terms and have to see them as integrated?
I think a critical part of this equation that you're saying is actually execution, which you left out. It's not just culture. To me, it's about strategy and execution and the balance between the two. And if your culture promotes execution, then you're good, then you're fine, if that's the way the culture is. So the only culture which is important from a strategy perspective is execution. And to me, both are equally important. Fantastic strategy, bad execution, complete failure. Okay? Bad strategy, very good execution, maybe you're there 10-20%, right? But average strategy, fantastic execution will get you there. Okay? So if the culture is about execution, then here's my answer for you. The second thing is, I have stopped bucketing everything into tactical and strategic. At least I have. Okay? I no longer use that bucketing. This is tactical campaign, this is strategic campaign. You don't know in this digital space what's going to take off and what's not going to take off. So me, it is about large or small, simple. Yeah? Any other questions? Please do give away the other 2 poker cards to these 2 gentlemen, and we've got 2 more notebooks, so questions please, if there are any. Otherwise, I take the notebooks home. Yeah, please. It's okay, I'll repeat your question, I can hear you, I'm right here. Thank you.
Felt that the future-proofing marketing is an oxymoron, as you mentioned, that these are 2 very
Yes,
terms
it is.
that don't go together. And
Yes.
Coming from a marketing background, we all need that. So one of the things that you presented, that building a future-proof brand identity.
Yes.
Right? Building a future-proof brand identity, there's another marketing jargon that we are throwing around very regularly, is being agile.
Yeah.
Right? So
Yes.
a lot of brand messages are changing, the brand identities are changing.
Yes.
Coke, which was 10 years back, is a little different
Yes.
right now.
Yes.
So would you feel that being agile is also future-proof? Being so regular with the change and knowing what your customers are changing with is something which is future-proof. Would you call that future-proof?
I would call it yes, and I'll just add to what you've said. If you sat in a MBA class at least till about a decade ago, there was this famous definition that would get used, that a brand is a box in a consumer's mind. And every time he experiences the brand, something gets added on. The negative gets added on and the positive gets added on, and that box builds, right? In The only thing you must remember is that in the good old days, it would be, every 2 months something new or every 3 months something new. In today's day and age, that consumer gets to see not just messages from you as a brand, but also your reviews, right? And it builds, in his or her mind. So everything that you do in the agile environment also builds. I think the only thing in the old school and the new school is that the old school believes it should look the same, it should sound the same, and I have a tagline. Okay. By the way, I think taglines don't work in the digital world very well. Okay. If you put them near the logo, they will never get read. Okay. Sorry. So as an aside, and I believe that it's about the thought leadership paper. It's about what your CEO is writing. It's about how your CEO's LinkedIn profile also that gets added on to this brand box. Okay. So I recently had an experience. So I'm a big fan of paper-bought products as a consumer. Okay, I'm not talking about the brand. I think they taste fantastic. Okay, one of the flavors that they had, they've stopped. Okay, and I wrote to them on Twitter because I absolutely love that flavor the most. They didn't respond for 2 days, so I said, "ठीक है यार, वो नहीं करते होंगे social media, क्या फर्क पड़ता है, right?" But about 2 days later, there was a message in my direct inbox on Twitter. Okay. I do know that because I have a decent number of followers, so people take me seriously, I know that. So they wrote back to me saying, "Where do you stay?" Right? So I wrote back a clear answer, "I stay here, I'm talking about this flavor, this is not available." Again, they took 2 days in responding, but they responded back saying, "Yeah, sorry, we've stopped that flavor." Right? I wrote back to them asking them, saying, "Why did you stop the flavor? Was it not popular? Or is there some other constraint?" Right? They again wrote back to me saying, it was not popular. My esteem for that brand has gone higher. Okay? Versus this. One of the airline brands that I'm still very loyal to. I still think they offer the better service and I continue to fly with them and I'm their frequent flyer member. That should tell you who I'm talking about. 13 years ago, when I was pregnant, so I was carrying my baby. I used to be their platinum member before that because I used to fly all the time. I used to be with Marico, huge number of flights and travel. And obviously I didn't fly for 6 months, right? Okay. My son was about a month or 2 old, and I get a lovely letter from them. "You've been downgraded to blue." Right? What a brilliant opportunity for an airline if they really understood consumer well. They know I'm a woman. They know after such hectic flying, it's a hiatus of 7-8 months. They could have asked me. They could have written to me and asked me saying, "Ma'am, why aren't you flying with us?" Yeah, and that was not even the era of such competition. I'm talking about, 12 years ago. Didn't just, send me. Brilliant opportunity. They could have written instead saying, "We'd fly your baby's first flight, free with us." And I'd be telling that story today here, right? Instead, what's the story I'm telling, right? So that's the example of, Agile. At Mahindra Holidays, I have personally gone and met one of our very difficult consumers on Twitter who was bad-mouthing us and bashing us up. She was right, by the way, in bashing us up. If you look at it, the whole perspective, she was right and we were wrong. I took her out for lunch. Okay, we found out about her. We figured how we could, who she was. I figured out through my various brilliant network that I have, that, friend of a friend, figured that out, called that person up, took her out for lunch. She's never badmouthed us again. Right? So, yeah, this is not a typical CMO duty. You don't need to do it. If you start doing it, you'll be doing only lunches. But I just wanted to give you this example that in this agile world, there are very different messages that, you can do as a brand. Okay, one last question, one little notebook for this gentleman, and last question if somebody has. If not, then I'm quite happy to go back to a glass of water. Okay, thank you very much. It's a pleasure, and thanks for your questions.